A very good evening, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286, Patricia and David. It's not a very good evening here, but I was just looking at the satellite picture and it looks like the worst of it is not really affecting too many people, but we'll probably pass the microphone and David can make some comments. We haven't actually got much to talk about tonight. Well, first of all, I'll tell you what our weather is. It is crummy, but we did have a dry morning, which was actually rather thankful because on our roof we had a plumber and we had a builder and a scaffolding person, and we were all wandering around the roof as if it was the middle of summer, and then 1 o'clock came and down came the rain with the trough. So we've got rain, 13 degrees at the moment, 1025.5. It dropped down from this morning, and no wind. May it stay no wind for a month because it's very hard to do work on a roof when it's windy and rainy. Anyway, just a little bit of news because we've got nothing much else to talk about. The last boat we had, Shanti, is in the Vavau waters now, heading towards the check-in dock, and there's not much more coming in from people until you all start moving again. There has been quite a bit of, sort of interesting news, really. Made me wonder. I don't know whether you guys do it, but I know every now and again when we're sailing along or doing something, we say, what would we do if such and such happened? Well, a boat burned to the ground. When I say the ground, it burned to the water level after a fire started in the engine room last week. It was a 14-metre, it looked like a fairly new vessel. It didn't say what caused the fire, but it did make me wonder, what one would do if we got a big fire like that. We have actually dealt with a fire on board. It was actually aft in the lazarette we didn't know it at the time because we'd been in fairly rough water, and a solar panel had been smashed by a wave. And things went to custard from there, but fortunately it just smouldered and smouldered and smouldered in the middle of the night, of course, in rough weather, and never actually caught fire. But of course we lost all of the electronics, the autopilot and the wind generator and things like that. And when we finally got to New Caledonia as we were going, we opened up the lazarette to a real mess. But it could have been a lot worse, and so it made me wonder, what you do in a fire situation like that if you haven't got halon operating in your engine room to put it out. So that was quite interesting. There's another cyclone about to hit in the US, in the Florida area. What else? In the UK, they're slowly recovering from the problem that took the air traffic control out of commission, so everyone slowed to a halt if they were trying to get anywhere on any flights. And the big problem, worldwide in fact, is the Panama Canal, which doesn't have enough water in it at the moment. I mean, here's the rest of the world suffering from too much water in places, certainly New Zealand, and the Panama Canal doesn't have enough water. They've cut down the number of ships that go through. There's a 12-day delay for shipping at both ends of the canal, and and they've also had to reduce the loading because otherwise they will hit the bottom. So it's a big problem for the Panama Canal. It will affect their income in Panama. I couldn't believe it. It's a $4 billion a year income for Panama. $4 billion. Absolutely amazing, isn't it? So there you go. That's about the news that's fit to print, except for the fact that the New Zealand dollar, and this will be of interest to all the foreign boats coming to New Zealand, the New Zealand dollar at the moment is the lowest it's been for a while, 0.59 against the US dollar. So you're almost doubling your money when you come here, which it needs to because prices are very high. Although actually, looking at what the prices are like in America, it seems that the whole world has got the same problem. Nordstrom's, believe it or not, are shutting down in San Francisco. because they're just not making enough profit. And the major problem is shoplifting. They have got a terrible problem in many of the big stores with shoplifting, and it's just eating into profits. And it's not just Nordstrom's, it's Target and a couple of other major chains that are having the problem with shoplifting. So yes, it's not a problem. Cost of living is not just a New Zealand problem. It's pretty much everywhere, but boy, it's certainly hitting home here with the price of fuel, for example, $3.30 a litre for our fuel for our cars. That's 98. So yes, it does make you try and be a bit more efficient when you're driving places. Anyway, I'm just going to stop and see if there's anybody with anything of interest from the cruising world. This is Gulf Harbour Radio listening. No, nothing here. I'll just see if David wants a quick update of what he's looking at on the screen here. And don't forget, folk, because there's nothing much happening, we are going to take next week off and go traipsing up north to see whether it's any warmer and drier up there. North of New Zealand, that is, not north where you are enjoying your wonderful weather. Here's David.
Not much different from yesterday out there, folks. The big high is, pretty much smack over New Zealand. You would wonder why it's raining here, having a big high over us, but actually there's a reason for it. There's a couple of troughs that happen to be wiggling around inside of this particular high. You look at the synoptic picture and you can actually see a bit of a polar dip in the high itself, and that usually portends a trough of some sort winding up in there. So that's what's happening to us. Up in the tropics, though, we still have an active trough that runs from the Solomons, runs right down into Vanuatu, and it continues to the southeast, sort of in between Fiji and New Zealand. Again, fairly active. You could expect thunderstorms and squalls, the usual. And the other trough runs, actually hooks up with this trough at the northern parts of Vanuatu. It starts there and then runs over Rotuma and over to Wallis and over to Samoa, and that's fairly active as well. But apart from that, that's the story in the big Southwest Pacific, and that's about it from me.
Well, what a dismal sounding voice, because he's looking out at our dismal weather here. All right, well, there's nothing much more from us. There's nothing much more exciting to report from the world. Tell you what, we tend not to listen too much to the news because it's the old New Zealand election is coming up, and so we're getting all these wondrous promises, assuming that there's money to pay for them all. And I tell you what, with our exchange rate being as it is, I'm not sure where the money's going to come from unless we find some money trees somewhere. So have a good evening, everybody. I'll make one final call. Is there anybody with anything?